Hey guys, so welcome to the second episode of Getting Started With, where we take new technologies in every video and try to, get started with it. So in this video, we'll be looking at a React based framework, Next.js. Okay, so it's built upon React. So if you don't have a knowledge of React, you haven't worked with it, so I highly recommend you to, start with React, at least do the basics, because I don't want to give false hope, but this video won't explain you React. I haven't used Next before, but it's very similar to React. So if you know React, you got it, I hope. Anyways, let's get started. So I am at the official website of Next.js, nextjs.org. You can come here and do it with me. So I saw that they have a tutorial like path, okay, like and they teach us to make a blog app, okay, like this very simple blog application which we can build following that tutorial, and that's what we will be doing. So before that, let's take a look at it. The React framework for production. So Next.js gives you the best developer experience with all features you need for production, hybrid static and server rendering, TypeScript support with no config needed. Okay, they already told no config needed, so I hope they won't require us to do any config. Why Next? Zero config, hybrid SSG and SSR. So it has very a lot of features. You can read it here. There's a Hulu case study. I don't think we'll be doing that, but yeah, we can jump to the blog page. One thing I noticed here, if we say Next.js conf, okay, so conference, they are organizing some conference and I wanna just register it. I wanted to show you guys that we can register it, urbancodes.io. I'll just register for it, and you're in, make it unique. Okay, so to build a complete web application with React from scratch, there are many important details to consider. Code has to be bundled using bundler like Webpack and transformed using compiler like Babel. You need to do production optimization such as code splitting. You might want to statically pre-render some pages for performance and SEO. Okay, so when I I have been wanting to learn Next since a long time, but one of the main reason to learn Next was to increase the SEO, search engine optimization, for my React apps. That was one of my main reason to learn Next. So yeah, you might want to use server-side rendering or client-side rendering. You might have to write some server-side code to connect your React app to your data store. A framework can solve these problems, but a framework must have a level of abstraction, otherwise it won't be very useful. It needs to have great developer experience, ensuring you and your team have an amazing experience while writing code. Next.js, the React framework, enters Next.js. The React framework, Next.js provides a solution to all of the above problems, but most importantly, it puts you and your team in a bit of success when building React application. Next.js has best-in-class developer experience and many built-in features. This free interactive course will guide you through how to get started with Next.js. In this tutorial, you will learn Next.js basics by creating a very simple blog app. Here's an example of final result. We already saw it. Let's get started. This tutorial assumes basic knowledge of JavaScript and React. If you have never written React code, you should go through official React tutorial first. If you want to, if you want me to make a video on React, just comment down below because I'll make it. If you are looking for documentation instead, visit this. I'm not sure if we'll see Next.js documentation in this video, because I don't want to make it a really long video, and I know this video alone is going to be very long. So hey, let's start. First, let's make sure that your development environment is ready. If you don't have Node installed, install it from here. So you can just go to nodejs.org and install any one of this. I have 12.18.4, so I'll skip it. You can install either of them, no problem. I have the LTS version. You'll be using your own text editor and terminal app for this tutorial. Okay, if you are on Windows, we recommend downloading Git for Windows and use Git bash when it that comes with it, which supports Unix specific commands in this tutorial. To create Next.js app, open a terminal, cd into the directory you want to create the app, and run the following command: npx create react app Next.js blog, use npm example. Okay, so they have a starter package or I don't know, boilerplate from where we can start our building our app. And so yeah, let's do it. So I have a Next.js startup folder already opened in my VS Code, and I noticed that the dark theme was hard to see on the video, so I'll switch to a lighter theme. So don't judge me, I am doing this for you only. Okay, so preferences and color theme, I'll take a light one. Okay, we have to open our terminal. I'll switch to git bash as they said. If you haven't installed git, actually you should install, but I am actually not liking this. Okay, I saw one meme. If I'll find it, I'll put it here, but man, that is so relatable right now. Dark plus. Okay, let's keep this only. I don't mind keeping it the default one. Okay, so we have to by typing you learn commands, right? I don't mean to say that you need to learn because it's available on the internet, but get the habit of it, right? Next.js blog. Even if you make mistakes, you can easily get example. And I'm not gonna type it out. Okay, I can't select. Wow. https github.com/vercel vercel/next learn starter tree master. Damn, it's long. Learn starter. Okay, and hopefully it's correct. Let's see. I wrote GitHub. My bad. Okay, now it should start. Yeah. Alright guys, so it has created a folder with the name Next.js-blog, and it's telling that we can cd into that and just cd and Next.js blog, and we can say npm run dev to start the development server. has started the server. Okay, under the hood, this uses the tool called create next app, which bootstraps the next app for you. It uses this template through the -- example flag. If it does not work, please take a look at this page. It did work, so we don't have to. Oh, I could have copied this URL. Damn, I look like a fool now. Okay, so it has created a basic next app. We can click here to learn actually what we are doing, and we can see the documentation here. Anyways, we can move ahead. We can cd into our Next.js blog and then run this. So yeah, this starts your Next.js apps development server. More on this later, on port 3000. Let's check to see if it's working. Open in your browser. Quick review. What text do you see on the welcome? We see welcome to Next.js, right? So you can say welcome to Next.js. Submit, and it's correct, and we can say next. Okay, you should see a page like this when you access this. We saw help is available. If you get stuck, you can reach out to the community on GitHub discussion. Let's try to edit this page next. Okay, let's try to edit. Let's try editing the starter page. Make sure the Next.js development server is still running. Open pages index with your text editor. Find the text that says welcome to under h1 tag and change it to learn. Okay, we can open pages index.js, and we can where is it? Welcome to. We can say learn Next.js. It starts compiling. Compiled successfully, and if we go back, changed, so we don't need to refresh it. That's good, right? As soon as you save the file, the browser automatically reloads and updates the page with new text. The Next.js development server has fast refresh enabled. When you make changes to the files, Next.js automatically applies the changes in the browser almost instantly. No refresh needed. This will help you iterate your app quickly. Next up, creating pages. Great job. That's it for the first lesson. In the next lesson, we'll talk about creating more pages and navigating between pages. You should keep the development server running, but if you want to restart, hit Ctrl+C to stop the server and then restart it. So far the Next.js app we created has only one page. Website and web application generally have many different pages. Let's explore to add more pages to our application. What you'll learn in this lesson. In this lesson, you will create new page using integrated file system routing. Learn how to use link component to enable the client-side navigation between pages. Learn about built-in support for code splitting and prefetching. If you're looking for detailed documentation on Next.js routing, take a look at routing documentation. Let's continue with the app only. If you're continuing from previous lesson, you can skip this page, clicking the next button. Download starter code. Okay. Pages in Next.js. In the Next.js, a page is a React component exported from file pages directory. The pages are associated with a route based on their file name. For example, in development, pages/index.js is associated with /route. Pages/post/first post is associated with /post/first post route. We already have index.js file, so let's create posts slash first post to see how it works. Okay, create the post directory under pages and create a file called first post inside the posts directory with the following content. Okay, we can do this, but I guess we need a React imported. No, we don't. Okay, so we have to create posts, and we can create first post.js. If you are on VS Code like me, I will show you a trick to create a file within a folder. So click on new file and just say posts slash first post.js, and it will create the folder and the file for you. So let's just export this. Next.js is actually awesome because I don't have to import React in it, and it takes JSX automatically. So that's pretty cool. I didn't see it in Gatsby, I guess. The component have any name, but you must export it as default export. Now you make sure that the development server is running and visit. Okay, our development server is still running. We haven't closed it, so we can. Okay, cool. So what did we add? Let's see. If you know React, you would know this. So we just exported a default function. Oh, come on. And first post, and what was it? We just returned JSX. For non-React coders, this might look as HTML, but it's not, it's JSX. So we can say it is JSX, and yeah, it updates. So it's working. So we just exported a functional component from our from our file. Nothing else to do. Okay, and we have to keep in mind that it should be a default export, not a named export in the file, in the pages at least. So yeah, this is how you can create different pages in Next.js. Simply create a JS file under pages directory, and then path to the file becomes the URL path. In a way, this is similar to building website using HTML or PHP files. Instead of writing HTML, you write JSX and use React components. Let's add a link to the newly added page so that we can navigate to it from home page. Quick review. If you want to add a new route /author/me, what would the file name be? Authors/me. So yeah, so authors/me.js should not be there. We should put it inside the pages, not routes, and then authors, then me.js. Okay, the link component. When linking between pages on websites, you use a HTML tag. In Next.js, we use link component from next/link to wrap the a tag. Link allows you to do client-side navigation to a different page in the application. First, in the pages.index.html, import link component from next/link by adding this line on the top of the file. Then modify h1 tag and say read link this page. Okay, so we can say something like, first we need to import link from next/link /link, and we can simply say our h1 to read, we can say this page, and we can simply say link to this and link to this as well. But there's a two attribute, I guess, or href only. Href only. They are using some different generally in React orders and stuff, they have two prop instead of href, so I thought read this page. And what the fresh, we didn't add the exact read posts first post, and now this should work. Did it refresh? Yeah, and it did. Cool. So actually we can close this and let's move on. Next, replace the content of pages first post with the following. So we don't need to replace it, we just have to add an import link from next link, and we just have to add a link to back to home. Do we need to add a between link? I don't think that's necessary, is it? They are putting it. I don't know why. That doesn't make any sense. Why do they have link inside a tag inside link? Href equals back to home, and I can't see any difference though. Let's put it here, and actually, you know what, let's see if this makes any difference. Let's save it. Visually there's no difference at all. They had some color changes. This is cool, but this was again they styled something like that. No problem. I am not sure why is that. Hopefully we'll get an answer to that. So as you see, similar to using a, but instead of a href, use and put an a tag inside. Yeah, we do put a tag inside. Let's check how this works. You should now have links on each page, allowing you to go back and forth. Client-side navigation. The link component enables client-side navigation between two pages in same Next.js app. Client-side navigation means that the page transition happens using JavaScript, which is faster than default navigation done by browser. Here's a simple way you can verify. Use browser developer tool, change the background CSS property of HTML to yellow. Click on the links, go back and forth to two pages. You will see the yellow persist between the transition. This shows that the browser does not load the full page and client-side navigation working. You want to see that in demo? We can do that. HTML, element style, background yellow, and when we do, it does not reload the page. If it would have reloaded, it would do something like this, right? It persists the condition or state of the page. Anyways, if you use instead of a instead of link and did this, the background color will be cleared on the link because link clicks because the browser does a full refresh. I hope you can experiment that yourself, right? Okay. Next.js does code splitting automatically. So each page only loads what is necessary for that page. That means when home page is rendered, the code for other pages is not served initially. This ensures that home page loads quickly, even if you have hundreds of pages. Only loading the code for page you request also means that the page becomes isolated. If a certain page throws an error, the rest of the application would still work. Furthermore, in a production build of Next.js, wherever link components appear in browser's viewport, Next.js automatically prefetches the code for the linked page in the background. By the time you click the link, the code for the destination will already be loaded in the background, and the page transition will be near instant. Nice. So whenever it loads a page, it will prefetch all the links it have. So when we click on a link, it will be, very fast when we navigate. So that's impressive. Next.js automatically optimizes our application for best performance by code splitting, client-side navigation, and prefetching in production. In production only. You create routes as file under summary. Okay, I was reading the summary only. You create routes as files under pages and use built-in link components. No routing libraries are required. You can learn more about link components in the API reference for next/link and the routing in general. In routing documentation, if you need to link an external page outside Next app, just use an A tag without link. If you need to add attributes like, for example, class name, add it to A tag, not to link tag. Okay. So if you need an external page, just use A tag without link. If you need to add attributes, like we can add to style and all, a user opens their browser, navigate to what JavaScript is initially loaded for this page. Right, for that page only it will be loaded. In production, if you prefetch, it won't load. That's a difference. That's a difference, my friend. That's difference. I have to make a lot of cuts in this video. The second page we added currently does not have any styling. Let's add some CSS to style the page. The Next.js has built-in support for CSS and Sass. For this course, we will use CSS. This lesson will talk about how Next.js handles static assets like images and page metadata like title tags. What you will learn in this lesson. In this lesson, you will learn how to add static files, images, etc. to Next.js, how to customize what goes inside head for each page, how to create a reusable React component which is styled using CSS modules, how to add global CSS in pages underscore app.js, and some useful tips for styling in Next.js. If you're looking for detailed documentation, take a look at. We'll do that sometime later, man. If you're continuing from this, okay, first let's talk about how Next.js handles static assets such as images. Next.js can serve static files like images under the top level public directory. Files inside public can be referenced from the root of the application, similar to the pages. Okay, if you open pages/index.html in your application, take a look at footer. We refer to a logo like so. If we open it, index.js, in the footer they have image, this one, right? Should I wait yeah, so they have an image like so, and yeah, the logo exists inside the public directory. Okay, there's the Vercel logo svg, and they directly refer to that. Okay, that's the public. Okay, top level, that they mean under top level public directory. So if we add images, like if we move this one to like images and we move this to this, then it won't work, right? It shouldn't work. Yeah, it's not working, and we have to do images, save it, let it compile, and it's back. So yeah, this is the top level for static files, public. Okay, logo at top level of your application. The public directory is also useful for robots.txt, the Google site verification, and any other static assets. Check out static file serving for to learn more. Quick review: if you wanted to add new asset, images, what would be the complete path? We just saw it, public/images/me. Good job. What if we wanted to modify the metadata of the page, such as the title HTML tag? Title is the part of head HTML tag. So let's dive into. It's 1:30 in the morning. 1:28 in the morning. I don't know, 1:30. Why did I say that? Okay, so let's dive into how we can modify head tag in Next pages. Open pages/next.js index.js in your editor and take a look at this. Okay, notice head is used instead of lowercase head. Head, capital H, is a React component that is built into Next.js. It allows you to modify head of the page. You can import head content from Next/head module, adding head to first post. We haven't added a title to our first post route. Let's add one. Open pages, posts, file, import head from Next/head, then add it to first post component. Now we just have a title. Okay, try accessing. Okay, let's see right now, what do we see? Okay, we see this localhost. Let's try adding and okay, we have to import it first. Import head from Next slash head, and we can say simply head. We can give it a title, and we can say the first post, and it is updated. To learn more about head component, check out API references for Next head. If you want to customize HTML, for example, add lang attribute, you can do so by creating a pages_document.js. Learn more about custom documenting. Okay. Next, move to CSS styling. We are halfway through that. No, not halfway, less than halfway. And it's 43 already. Let's now talk about CSS styling. As you can see, our index page already has some styling. If you take a look at pages/index.js, you should see like this: style JSX, then this. Do we have that? Do we have that? We have that at the last, at the very last after footer, we have that. But before the closing div, the closing container div, we have JSX, and then we have JSX global as well. Okay, let's see what's that. This is using a library called JSX. It's a CSS in JS library. It lets you write CSS within React component, and CSS styles will be scoped. Other components won't be affected. Next.js has built-in support for styled JSX, but you can also use other popular CSS in JS libraries like styled components or emotion. Okay, I have used styled components, but writing and importing CSS. Next.js has built-in support for CSS and Sass, which will allow you to import .css and .scss files without using popular CSS libraries like Tailwind CSS, which I haven't tried it, so you can try it in any other video, is also supported. In this lesson, we'll talk about how to write and import CSS files. We'll also talk about Next.js built-in support for CSS modules and Sass. Let's dive in. Layout component. Let's create a layout component which will be common all pages. Create a top level directory called components. Inside, create a file which will. Okay, so we can create a top level. Inside this next block, we can say components. We can say components, and we can create layout.js, and we can say functional. This is basically saying function layout, and we are destructuring the children. If you know React, you know what I am doing. If you don't know, basically, okay, I'll tell you what am I doing. And we export the default layout so that we can use it in other files. Okay, so then in pages/posts, okay, in pages and posts, we'll import layout from components and layout. And what we'll do, we'll add this layout thing to here. So this children, if you notice now, we don't have anything, because we actually don't have anything. But what we can do, this children is actually the things passed inside this. Okay, so now if we see, it's rendering all the, so that was the children. Okay, so okay, now we can add layout. Very good. We can add CSS to this layout and it will affect everything inside this. So that's a global CSS thing. Okay, now let's add some style to do so. We'll use CSS modules, which lets import CSS in a React component. Create a file called layout.module.css in the components directory, within add following. So let's quickly create layout.module.css and let's add this. Okay, and important, use CSS modules. The CSS file name must end with .module.css. To use this in layout, import it as styles. Okay, so we can say something like import styles from layout.module.css, and we can give class name as styles dot, what was the name, container. Okay, so yeah, so we can give the class name, and this should apply the styles to all of its children. Okay, automatically generate unique class names. Yeah, so this is really cool, so I'll tell you why. Because if we inspect the element, you can see that, where did it go? Layout container. Yeah, so this is the div, and this has the layout container and a uniquely generated class name. Okay, so if we have used regular .css instead of .module.css, it would have the class name as container, which we would give it. But in this case, it will dynamically generate the class names, which is pretty cool because it will separate it from other components, and you will it will prevent a lot of what do you say, it will prevent a lot of errors. I was not getting the word, I'm seriously not getting the word. Anyways, automatically generate the unique class names. Now if we take a look at HTML in your browser dev tools, you'll see, yeah, like we saw. Okay, this is what CSS module does. It automatically generates a unique class name. As long as you use CSS module, you don't have to worry about the class name collisions. Furthermore, Next.js code splitting feature works on CSS module as well. It ensures the minimal amount of CSS is loaded for each page. This results in small bundle sizes. So again, the load will be faster. It will load the page faster. CSS modules are extracted from JavaScript bundles at a build time and generate .css files that are loaded automatically by Next.js. Quick review. Which of the following styling method does Next.js not have built-in support for? Styled JSX, styled components. Okay. CSS modules are useful for component level styles, but if you want some CSS to be loaded by every page, Next.js has support for that as well. To load global CSS files, create a file called _app.js under pages and add the following content. What is this, baby? Yeah, in the pages only, no? In the pages. Okay, we'll pass a component and we'll pass a page prop. Okay, it's just an app. We'll pass the component, we'll pass the page props. Nothing else. We are just rendering whatever the, This app is a top level component which will be common across all different pages. You can use this app component to keep state when navigating between pages. For example, okay, that was the full stop. Restart the development server. Important, you need to restart the important server in a development server when you add. Okay, so we have to restart it, otherwise it won't run. Adding global CSS. In Next.js, you can add global CSS files by importing them from pages. Okay, you cannot import global styles anywhere. Okay, this is important. You cannot import global CSS anywhere. The reason that global CSS can't be imported outside is that global CSS affects all the elements on the pages. If you were to navigate from home page to first post page, global styles from home page would affect the first post page unintentionally. You can place the global CSS file anywhere, use any name. So let's do the following. Create a top level styles directory and create global.css inside it. So inside Next.js blog, we'll create styles directory and we'll create global.css inside it and add the following content. It will reset some styles and changes a tag. Okay, so we'll import it, right? So yeah, we have to import it in our _app.js. So we'll do that now. Import styles and global.css. And if we see it now, get refreshed, pre-rendered page. Okay, you can see the right. Okay, so we can see the global styles applied to there. If you access, you'll see that styles are applied, right? If it didn't work, make sure you restart the development server when you add where you can import CSS file. Submit only inside the _app.js file. Polishing layout. So far we have only added minimal React and CSS code just to illustrate concepts such as CSS model. Before we move on to our next lesson about data fetching, let's polish our page styling and code. Download your profile picture. First we'll be using your profile picture for final design. Download your profile picture from elsewhere or use this. Okay, so I'll just find one of my pic. I don't think I have it. Damn. Let me just edit. Okay, create an image directory inside of public directory. Save the picture as profile.jpg inside images. The image size can be around 400 by 400. You may remove unused under public directory. Okay, I just added this profile. I'll change the name, profile pic, and I can remove this person. So I have added this, and let's just quickly say update component module CSS. Okay, we'll add this since this is not CSS tutorial, so I'm just copy and pasting it because we are just we just want to we have to create a utils module.css. So inside styles only, and we can add this to that. Okay, third, let's create a set of utility CSS classes for typography and others that can be useful across multiple components. Let's add this CSS module. Okay, we added that, and update layout.js. So fourth, copy and paste the component, change your name at the top. What's new? Here's what's new: meta tag, OG image, boolean home page, boolean home prop, which will adjust the size of the title and the image back to home. And okay, so we can add this, and let's understand the code once I put it. Okay, how big is it? Okay, so we can update our layout.js. Let's try to understand what it is. Okay, so we have imported a couple of things. We have imported the utils module.css, we have imported the link tag, we have imported the head tag, we have imported the layout. That was like before only. So we can update this name. I'll add just Arpan Abhishek. We have exported a site title, Next.js sample website. So in the parent div, we have a styles.container class. Then in the head tag, we have a couple of icon we have. Then we have meta tags, couple of OG meta tags. If you don't know about Open Graph, so this is basically what it say sample website by Arpan Abhishek, or I should say Arpan Codes. Okay, so OG Open Graph is basically it's by Facebook, I guess. So Open Graph is basically what it'll do, it'll make social cards. Like when you share a link, it shows you the image and everything. Like if you see urbancodes.io, you'll see that Facebook social cards webmaster. We can see if I'll checker. Let's see, sharing debugger. Yeah, this one. If I add urbancodes.io and check it, it will show me like this one. You get it? It will show the URL, the title, the image, and the description. So yeah, that's what it is. Woo! This is funky. Okay. Amazing. Okay, so this was just because we added an image tag. Okay, we added an image tag, we added util style border circle, it was in the utils, and we added an h1 with our name. Okay, and we have a link. Okay, if it isn't, what if it's not home? Okay, what we'll do if it's home. Okay, if it's home, it doesn't do anything. What's home? Children home. Okay, I guess we'll pass a prop to it later, so we'll check what's that. Anyways, if it's home, otherwise we'll print render a link, and I don't know what's this. I hope it will get clear after that. Then we'll render the children, which is basically this thing, the block content, and then we have a back to home page link. Okay, cool. That was all about layout, I guess. Yeah, that was all about the layout. Then we can say update the pages index.html. Finally, let's update the home page. Change index.html as follows. Let's see. Okay, we have head, we have site title, and from the layout, remember we exported the site title, right? We declared and we exported as a named export, so we can check. Okay, so layout, we passed a home, so this is home. Let's see how this looks if it's home. Okay, it's huge. Your self introduction, I'll add this later. This is a sample website. You'll be building a site like this on. Okay, they have self promotion. Okay, replace your self introduction with your self introduction. Here's an example with author's profile. I'll quickly add that. And it's done. So yeah, that's it. We now have a polished layout in place to move out onto our data fetching lessons. Before we wrap up this lesson, let's talk about something helpful, techniques related to Next.js CSS support on the next page. Why are CSS modules useful? They scope styles only at component level. Yep. Styling tips. Here are some styling tips that might be helpful. You can just read through the following lesson, no need to make changes to your app. Okay. Using class names library to toggle classes. Class names is a simple library that lets you toggle classes name easily. You can install it using npm install class names or yarn add class names. Please take a look at documentation for more details. It's class name detail. But here's the basic usage. Suppose you want to create alert component which accepts type which can be success or error. If it's success, you want the text color to be green. If it's error, you want the text color to be red. So we can have alert modules like this, and use class names like this. Cn from class names, cn styles.success type equal. Okay, so we can pass a prop and we can check If this returns true, then apply this. If this returns true, apply this. Customizing post CSS config. Out of the box with no configuration, Next.js compiles CSS using post CSS. To customize post CSS config, you can create a top level file called postcss.config.js. This is useful if you are using libraries like Tailwind. Here are steps to add Tailwind. We recommend using postcss preset env and postcss flexbugs fixes to match Next.js default behavior. First, so if you are using Tailwind, this is helpful, but if you're not using, and out of the box allows you to support to import Sass using both SCSS and CSS. You can use component level Sass via module and add .module.scss, or before you can use Next.js built-in support, be sure to install Sass. That's it. Okay, I know I skipped that one. Which one? Okay, we are almost halfway through. Let's start now. We'd like to create a blog. Here's the desired result. We already saw it, I guess. Yeah, we already saw it. So yeah, but so far we have added no blog content in this lesson. We learned how to fetch external blog data into our app. We'll store the blog content in a file system, but it will work if the content stored elsewhere. Example, database or headless CMS. In this lesson, you learn about Next.js pre-rendering feature, the two forms of pre-rendering: static generation and server-side rendering. Static generation with data or without data. Get static prop and how to use it to import external blog data into index page. Some useful information in the documentation. Start now. If you are continuing from previous lesson, you can skip this lesson. Okay. Before we talk about data fetching, let's talk about one of the most important concepts in Next.js: pre-rendering. By default, Next.js pre-renders every page. This means the Next.js generates HTML for each page in advance. Instead of having it all done by client-side JavaScript, pre-rendering can result in better performance and SEO. Each generated HTML is associated with minimal JavaScript code necessary for that page. When a page is loaded by browser, its JavaScript code runs and makes the page fully interactive. This process is called hydration. Check that pre-rendering is happening. You can check that pre-rendering is happening by taking the following step. Disable JavaScript in your browser and try accessing this page. Let's disable the JavaScript. Java. JavaScript. Let's block the JavaScript. Let's try accessing this page. Okay, I'm not sure if it's rendering or not rendering. I mean if it's, I'm not sure. Wait a minute. I was able to do it. You should see your app is rendered without JavaScript. That's because Next.js has pre-rendered the app into static HTML, allowing you to see. That's really cool. That's really cool. You can try the above step on localhost, but CSS won't be loaded if you disable JavaScript. If your app is plain React app without Next.js, there is no pre-rendering, so you won't be able. Okay, let's check it out. Okay, now disable the JavaScript. We disabled it, and let's try to refresh it. Whoa. Nice. I like it. Okay, you won't see the app anymore. Instead you say okay. Summary: pre-rendering and versus no pre-rendering. Here's a quick graphical summary. Pre-rendering using Next.js. Pre-render HTML is displayed. Hydration: the React components are initialized and app becomes interactive. Nice. Next, let's talk about two forms of pre-rendering in Next.js. Not benefit. Two forms of pre-rendering. Next.js has two forms of pre-rendering: static generation and server-side rendering. The difference is when it generates the HTML for a page. The static generation is a pre-rendering method that generates the HTML as build time. The pre-rendered HTML then reused on each request. Server-side rendering is pre-rendering method that generates the HTML on each request. In the development mode, when you run, every page is pre-rendered on each request. Even for pages that use static generation, per page basis. Importantly, Next.js lets you choose which pre-rendering form to use for each page. You can create hybrid Next.js app using static generation for most pages and using server-side rendering for others. Nice. When to use static generation versus server-side rendering? We recommend using static side generation with and without data whenever possible, because your page can be built once and served by CDN, which makes it much faster than having a server render the page on every request. You can use static generation for many types of pages, including marketing page, blog post, e-commerce product listing, help, and documentation. You should ask yourself, can I pre-render this page ahead of user's request? If the answer is yes, then you should choose static generation. On the other hand, static generation is not a good idea if you cannot pre-render a page ahead of user's request. Maybe your page shows frequently updated data and the page content changes on every request. In that case, you can use server-side rendering. It will be slower, but on the other hand, static generation is not a good idea if you cannot pre-render a page ahead of user's request. Maybe your page shows frequently updated data and the page content changes on every request. In that case, you can use server-side rendering. It will be slower, but the pre-rendered page will always be up to date. Or you can skip pre-rendering and use client-side JavaScript to populate frequently updated data. We'll focus on static generation in this lesson. We'll focus on static generation. On the next page, we'll talk about static generation with and without data. When to use server-side rendering, when data needs to be updated with every request. Static generation can be done with and without data. So far, all pages we have created do not require fetching external data. Those pages will automatically be statically generated when the app is built for production. Okay. However, for some pages, you might not be able to render the HTML without first fetching some external data. Maybe you need to access file system, fetch external APIs, or query your database at build time. Next.js supports this case. Static generation with data out of the box. For pages that can only be generated after fetching external data at build time, static generation with data using getStaticProp. How does it work? Well, in Next.js, when you export a page component, you can also export async function called getStaticProps. If you do this, then getStaticProps runs at build time in production, and inside the function you can fetch external data and send it as a prop to the page. Nice. Essentially, getStaticProp allows you to tell Next.js, hey, this page has some data dependency, so you pre-render this page at build time. Make sure to resolve them first. Okay, in development mode, getStaticProps runs on each request instead. Let's use getStaticProp. It's easier to learn by doing so. Starting from next page, we'll use getStaticProp to implement our blog. Sure, we have been waiting for that. We'll now add blog data to our app using file system. Each blog post will be a markdown file. Create a new top level directory called posts. This is not same as page posts. Okay, inside create two files, pre-rendering.md and ssg.ssr.md. Copy the pre-rendering. Okay, you copy and paste, and we copy and paste. You might have noticed that each markdown has metadata section at the top containing title, and this is called YAML font formatter, which can be parsed using library called gray matter. Okay, I don't know about that, but when I was learning about Gatsby, we used to do the same thing there as well. So we can say posts, and we can say pre-rendering.md, and we can say ssg.ssr.md. We can copy and paste it to the pre-rendering, two forms of pre-rendering, and we can copy and paste to ssg.ssr as well. Okay, it's done. Parsing blog data on the blog data on getStaticProp. Now let's update our index page. Using this data, we'd like to parse each markdown file, get title, date, and file name, which will be used as ID for the post URL. Okay, list the data on index page sorted by date. To do this, on pre-render, we will implement getStaticProps. We have been talking about that. Okay, we'll do that in next. We have to install gray matter to parse the metadata from each markdown file. So we close this server of ours. It's jam, I guess. So we'll open the terminal again and we'll paste it. It's working now. Okay, this was fast. We'll create a simple library for fetching the data from the file system. Create a top level directory called lib and create a file called post.js inside the following content. Okay, so we'll create what the frash did I did lib create post.js. Okay, what did I do was I installed it here, which I did not mean to do. So I'll just move to the cycle bin and I'll cd into NextJS blog and run that npm install again. Okay, till that is done, I will try to let's do this first. In the index page we'll import this and then call this function in get static props. Okay, so we'll first import this function from post.js inside our index.js, and then we add a async function, export an async function which is not a default export. Okay, so it's not a default export, and once this is set up, all post data drop will be passed to home component. To see this, modify the all post data will be added to home component as a prop. This will take all post data, and to display the data, add another section at the bottom of this component, and we add something like this. So its class name is util styles heading MD, padding 1 pixel, util styles heading large, blog, so util styles. Okay, so we have a list, unordered list, and all post data, that's an array. We are mapping over it, and we are getting ID, date, and title from it, and okay, date, br, and title, and ID is the we can see how this looks, but we have to npm run dev first, and we have to understand what this is doing. First, let's see the result. Okay, compiled successfully. We can check our loading, compiling. Awesome, so it is done. So it's showing everything that we need to show. But yeah, let's understand. So we have imported 3 things. This gray matter we just installed. The path is a Node.js. What do you say? It comes with Node.js, the FSS file system, which also comes with Node.js. we are exporting a get sorted post data from this as a named export, not a default one. So const file names equals fs.read directory synchronously, and we are reading the post directory, and the post directory is from the current working directory posts. So basically root/posts, and which is this one where we added all our markdown files. Okay, so yeah, that's one thing. Then we are get file names. Okay, we are getting the file names. Okay, read directory synchronously. Okay, then all post data, we have to collect all the post data. File name post directory. What's this? I don't think this was there. That's what. That's what. So yeah, we are getting the post directory from all the file name from that post directory. Then on all the file names we are mapping, and we will return basically maps over an array and returns a new array. Okay, so for each file name we are replacing empty with an empty string. Okay, so that will give us an ID. Read the markdown file as string. So full path of the markdown file is post directory, then /file name, and that's the full path of that particular file. Then file contents we are parsing it as UTF-8 and then reading it with full path. Okay, giving it the path and the UTF. Okay, then we are parsing the metadata, the title and the date, which was here. Okay, so that is giving us as the metadata, and then we are returning ID and this as an object to that array. Okay, each object will be the element of this array. Okay, all post data, and at last we are just exporting a sorted array where it's sorted by the date. Okay, so yeah, sorted by the date. So the latest post will be at first and then the next post. Hope that code makes sense to you, and yeah, that's one thing. So you should now see the block data if you can access. Okay, congratulations, we have successfully fetched external data from the file system and pre-rendered the index page with this data. You can also this was the one to read from the file, but if you want to read from the database or anywhere, you can use that as well from this. And yeah, you can return this all post data, return as prop all post data, which will be here. Okay, in the home, which will be a prop to the home component, and then you can use it inside your component. So hope that is easy, but not that tricky. Okay, here is some essential information you should know about get static prop. Fetch external API or query database. In libpost we implemented get sorted post data, which fetches data from the file system, but you can fetch data from other sources like external API endpoint. It will work just fine. Okay, get sorted post data we can fetch from whatever. Okay, doesn't matter. Next.js polyfill fetch on both client and server. You don't need to import it. You can also query database directly. There's some database SDK. Okay, like we can create client like MongoDB or anything, we can query for the database. Okay, select post, so we can, here that's using some SQL database, I don't know what. Okay, this is possibly because get static runs only on server side. It will never run on client side. It won't even include the JS bundle for the browser. That means you can write code as direct database query without them being sent to the browser. That's cool. Development versus production. In development, get static prop runs on every request. In production, get static prop runs at build time, because it's meant to be run at build time. You won't be able to use data that only available during request time, such as query parameters and HTTP headers. Okay, you won't be able to use data that's only available during the request time. Only allowed in a page. Get static props can only be exported from a page. You can't export from non-page file like component and all. One of the reasons of this restriction is that React needs to have all required data before the page is rendered. What if it needs to fetch the data at request time? Static generation is not a good idea if you cannot pre-render a page ahead of user's request. Maybe your page shows frequently updated data and the page content changes on every request. In that case, you can try server-side rendering and skip re-rendering or skip pre-rendering. Let's talk about these strategies before moving on to next lesson. I guess both. Right, we just saw it. My bad. This is possibly because get static prop runs only on server side, so we can write the database direct. Shit, man. Incorrect, but nice try. Okay, no problem. This happens. Okay, so we have almost completed API routes, then deploying. Okay, let's deploy this quickly. Okay, if you need to fetch the data at request time instead of build time, you can try server-side rendering. Server-side rendering with data. On each request, the data is fetched with HTML. Okay, to use server-side rendering, you need to export get server-side props instead of get static props from your page. Using get server-side props. Get server-side props. It's not necessary for a blog example, but so we won't be implementing it. Because server-side prop is at request time, its parameter context contains the request specific parameters. You should use get static only if you need to pre-render a page whose data must be fetched at request time. Time to first byte will be slower than get static prop because server must compute the result on every request, and the result cannot be cached by CDN without extra configuration. Client-side rendering. If you do not need to pre-render data, you can also use strategy called client-side rendering, which we do in Gatsby. Statically generate pre-rendered parts of the page that do not require external data. When page loads, fetch the data from external data from client using JavaScript and populate the remaining parts. Cool. This approach works well for user dashboard pages, for example, because a dashboard is private. User specific page SEO is not relevant. The page does not need to be pre-rendered. The data is frequently updated and which requires request time data fetching. SWR. The team behind Next.js has created a React hook for creating data fetching called SWR. We highly recommend it if you are fetching data on client side. It handles caching, revalidation, focus tracking, and refetching on intervals and more. We won't cover the details here, but here's an example usage. That's it. In the next lesson, we'll create a page for each blog post using dynamic routes. Again, you can get in depth about get static props in the data fetching docs. We'll do that sometime else. When should you use client-side rendering? When you can pre-render the data ahead of the user. Client-side rendering. When user need to fetch data instead of build time. Yeah, right. Okay, this is also a big one, man. Okay, we have populated, but still we haven't individual blog post. Here's the desired result. Okay, what you'll learn: how to statically generate pages, get static path, how to write get static props to fetch data in each blog post, how to render markdown using remark, how to predict how to link a page with dynamic routes, and some useful information on dynamic routes. Here continuing, page path depends on external data. Page path depends on external data. In previous lesson we covered the case where page content depends on external data. We used get static prop to fetch required data to render the index page. In this lesson we will talk about the case where each page path depends on external data. Next.js allows you to statically generate pages with paths that depends on external data. This enables dynamic URLs in Next.js. How to statically generate pages with dynamic routes? In our case, we want to create dynamic routes for blog post. We want each post to have the path /post/id, where id is the name of the markdown file under the top level. Okay, since we have SSR and that, okay, we'd like the path to be post SSR, basically the name of the post we want to have as the URL path. We can do this by taking the following steps. You don't need to make any changes yet. We'll do that in the next page. First, we'll create a page called id.js under the, okay, we'll create this only. Pages that begins with this and this are dynamic routes in Next.js. Cool. We'll write the code that will render a post page, just like other pages we have created. Import without okay. Now here's what's new. We'll export an async function called get static path from this page. In this function we will need to return a list of possible values for id. Okay, finally we will implement static props again, this time to fetch necessary data for the blog post for given id. A static prop is given params which contains id because the file name is id. Okay, here's the graphic summary of what this will look like. Okay, let's try this on the next page. Implement get static path. Create a file name id inside p. Also remove first post inside the. You can simply rename it and say id, and we can have this we can fill in layout later. Okay, then open lib-post.js and add this function. This will return the list of file names excluding md in the post. Get our post id. So we are exporting a function called export id. So this is okay, this is what it is doing. It's getting the post directory again like the previous one. It's getting the file names with md, then it's mapping over it and replacing md with just a quote, and yeah, same as before. We just need to export it. Okay, returns an array like this. So it's returning as a param, okay, param id. So it's exporting an object, an array of objects with params. Okay, important, the return list is not an array of strings. It must be an array of objects that look like comment above. Each object must have a params key and contains an object with id key, because we are using id in the file name. Otherwise, get static path will fail. Finally, we'll import this function. Okay, in id we'll import this function. Where did it go? We'll import this function and we'll have that async get static paths here. So it's getting all the paths from this function, the list of objects, the array of objects with param key, and it will return paths that array with fallback false. I don't know what's fallback. Hopefully they'll explain it. The array of possible values id must be value of paths key returned object. This is what exactly get our post id returns. Ignore fallback for now, we'll explain that later. Okay, we are almost done, but we still need to implement get static props. Let's do that on next page. Implement get static props. We need to fetch necessary data to render the post, that is with the given id. To do so, open lib/posts.js again and add this function which will return the post data based on id. So this will return, this function will accept an id, id as a parameter, and then it will get the full path with .md using path.join using that post directory. Then it will get the full path. Okay, then it will get the matter of the data. Okay, data. Okay, then okay, I hope it has the content as well. Okay, so I hope this data has the content after we parse it. Finally, in pages, replace this line with this. Okay, we just have to add the get post data and the id. We add this and we add this as well. Get static props, and in this prop it will accept a params which will have an id. Okay, basically id post data. Basically it will have the which will be the path of this, right? So if we go to slash ssgs-ssr, so this params.id will have that, and then it will be passed given to this, and it will get all the data, post data, and we can simply put the post data in the here layout. So So yeah, we can have post data, we can destructure it here, post data, and we can destructure it, and we can check that out here. Okay, but it's the same as this one, right? So it's same as that one. So we need the, okay, great, we have successfully generated dynamic route. Something is wrong. If you come across an error, we did not come across the error. Again, there's a summary of what we have done. Okay, get component to render this page, get static paths will return the array of list of IDs, possible values for IDs, then will fetch the necessary data of post with that ID. We still haven't displayed the markdown content. Let's do this next. How does parents.id from knows the value from the file name? Okay, it's the value from the file name. Okay, we have to install new remark. Okay, yes, we have to again delete that cd into next.js block and install. Wow, install npm remark. Okay, and we can import them into this. We have the post, we can import them into this and update the get post data as follows to use remark. Okay, we just have to do this, get post data, and we have to add the content HTML. Is that right? Okay, I don't know why is that not working. Okay, it's content HTML. So yeah, okay, what this did, we just imported remark and HTML from remark and remark HTML. These were two packages that we installed just now. So what we did, processed content await remark.use HTML process matter result.content. So it had the matter result, I mean content, but we had to process that content and convert it to HTML. Why we did that? We can check because we have that in our hands. So we can simply give a dr here as well, and then give something like post data dot content. Hopefully that will work. Okay, so if you wait, we don't have that. npm run dev. Okay, I had an error. We have to add async before this function declaration. Okay, this should compile successfully, and then we will get this post data return serializable. Okay, that is not what I meant, but Okay, no problem. Post data. Okay, so it does not have that content. HTML. Let's try that. Compile successfully. Let's try that. Okay, I don't know why is that happening. We've added async keyword to the post data. Okay, I added that as well. That means we need to update. Okay, so we have to add a sync here as well. I mean, await here as well. Wait, here get post data. Okay, and this should work now. Compile successfully. So if we refresh, perfect, it renders as HTML, but we don't want to do that. We want what do we want? We want first content. Okay, so as content, it does not do anything. Wow, it does not render anything. Okay, perfect. No wonder. Dangerously set inner HTML. Okay, so finally update the post using dangerously set inner HTML. So we cannot just set HTML. We have to set it as like this, because there might be some dangerous scripts or something. So it Next does not allow us to directly render it, but if we know that it's HTML, so it will be rendered like this, else it will be rendered as a simple string like it was rendered a moment before. Okay, now if you check the pre-rendering, it should also work. Yeah, it's also working. Let's polish this. Now adding title to the post page. So we can see, let's add a title. Okay, so we can say import head, importing head, import head, and we can simply add head, title, and we can simply say post data dot title. Okay, this should work. This should be updated here. Compile. Please compile it soon. Yeah, it's done. So we can, to format the date, we'll use first install it. So we can install it. CD. Yeah, and install it. Yeah. Next, create date component after installing. Date component at component.date.js. So we can say simply like components date.js, and we have something like parse ISO and format from the date FNS. Export default function date string. It will take a date string, it will parse ISO, and then it will, do we have a time tag in HTML? I don't know. It will just format it as LL. I don't know why. Okay, it will do something. I really don't know what's the format. You can view the different formats here. Okay, you can check that. I don't want to do that right now. because this video is already getting so long. Okay, so we can import that in ID. It's done, so we'll just ID, I'll just import date from ID, and we'll replace the date here, and it should, let's see, how does it look? It's compiled. Okay, January. Okay, so that was the month name, then date, and then the year. Nice. Adding CSS. Put everything under article tag. Okay, everything under article tag. Let's copy and paste it there only. The title, the light text, I don't know why is that. Okay, for the date, and then the, do we need to import something? Okay, util styles. We need to import the util module CSS. Save it, and it should be done. Ooh, it's done, baby. Great, we'll polish the index page and we'll be done. Polishing the index.js page. Okay, so page using link component. Let's import link and date in index.html. I'm in habit of saying index.html. It's index.js. Okay, index.js. Okay, index.js, and then what we'll do, near the bottom of home, replace li tags. Okay, we'll just replace the li one, where we are mapping over this. So we'll replace it with link, so that we can, it should now be link to each if something's not working. Okay, so what did we do? We imported link and date. Okay, and we added a link to the title, and the title will be the post/id. You remember the IDs are link, dynamically generated link, and this util styles light text is already in CSS, so it's not about CSS, it's just about next. Okay, date string is date, and what's the date? It's from the, this only. So now it should, let's go back to the home. What's this, man? And we do have our, links. That's it. Before we wrap up the lesson, let's talk about some tips for dynamic routes in the next page. Okay, tips for dynamic routes. Here is some essential information you should know about dynamic routes. Fetch external APIs or query database. Like get static props, get static paths can fetch data from data source. In our example, get post IDs, which is used by get static path, may fetch from external API endpoint. Okay, so it will be the ID for the post. Okay, development versus production. In the development, runs on every request. In production, static path runs at build time. Again, fallback. Recall that we returned fallback as false from static paths. What does this mean? If the fallback is false, then any path not returned by will result in 404 page. If the fallback is true, then behavior static props will change. The path returned from get static path will be rendered from HTML at build time. The path that have not been generated at build time will not result in 404 page. Instead, Next.js will serve a fallback version of this page on the first request to such a path. Okay, in the background, Next.js will statically generate a requested path subsequent. Let's try this. Okay, let's add fallback as true. Then what will happen? And so fallback is true, the path returned will be rendered to HTML at build time. The part that has not been generated at the build time will not result in 404 page. Instead, Next.js will serve a fallback version of the page on the first request of such path. In the background, Next.js will statically generate the requested path. Subsequently, will serve the generated page like other pages pre-rendered. Okay, so I tried to fetch that. Okay, no problem. This is beyond scope of our lesson, but you can learn more about fallback true in fallback documentation. Catch all route. Dynamic route can be extended to catch all paths by adding 3 dots inside the bracket. Okay, so matches A but also matches A-B, matches A-B-C, and so on. Oh, nice. If you do this study, you must return an array as the value of id key, like so. A-B-C, generate A-B, and params.id will be an array in get static prop. Nice. If you want to access Next.js router, you can do so by use router hook from next router. To create a custom 404 page, create a 404.js. This file is statically generated at the build time. Okay, we can create a custom error page. More examples. That's it. In the next lesson, we'll talk about API routes in Next.js. You want to add blog post to each category as new dynamic. What's the correct way to implement it? Use get_stat_prop to fetch given ID. No, prop to fetch all possible blog posts and to fetch a specific post for a given ID. Yeah. API route. How to create an API route? Some useful information on API route. What was that? If you're continuing, okay. API route lets you create an API endpoint inside Next app. You can do so by creating a function inside the pages API directory that has the following format. Export default request and response. Oh man, this is Node.js. Pages then API. API routes lets you create API endpoint inside Next app. You can do so by creating a function inside pages API. Request data, respond data. API that has, okay, that's not something like that. That's not a file, that's a directory inside pages. Okay, let's create hello.js inside that, hello.js, and add this. Try accessing. Okay, we see a JSON. It's exactly like Node.js. Amazing. Here is some essential information you should know about API routes. Do not fetch API routes from getStaticProps or getStaticPaths. You should not fetch an API route from getStaticProp or getStaticPath. Instead, write server-side code directly in. Okay, here's why. Yeah, so these run only on server side. We already saw that. It will never run on client side. It won't be even included in the JS bundle for the browser. That means you can write the code such as direct database queries. Okay, that means you can write such as data without being sent to the browser. A good use case handling form input. Okay, a good use case handling form input. For example, you can create a form on your page and have it sent a post request to the API route. You can then write code directly to save it to your database. API route code will not be a part of your client bundle, so you can safely write server-side code. Nice. Preview mode. Static generation is useful when your pages fetch data from a headless CMS. However, it's not ideal when you're writing a draft on your headless CMS and you want to preview them immediately on your page. You'd want Next.js to render these pages at request time instead of build time and fetch the draft in content instead of publishing content. You'd want Next.js to bypass static generation only for the specific case. Next.js has a feature called preview mode to solve the problem. It utilizes API routes. To learn more about it, look at our preview mode. Next.js is amazing. Dynamic API route. API route can be dynamic just like regular pages. Take a look at dynamic API route documentation. That's it. The next and final basic lesson, we'll talk about how to deploy our next app to the production. Quick review. Which of the following is the good use case for an API route? Awesome. Good job. Yay. In this final lesson, we'll deploy our next app to production. We'll learn how to deploy to Vercel, the Jamstack deployment platform built by the creators of Next.js. We'll also talk about other deployment options. Prerequisite. You need to have a GitHub account for this lesson. How to deploy your next app to Vercel DPS workflow. Develop, preview, and ship. How to deploy your next app. Own hosting provider. Okay. Before we deploy, let's push our code to GitHub if you haven't done already. This will make the deployment easier. On your personal account, create a repository, Next.js blog. Let's open our GitHub account and profile. Create a new repository, Next.js blog. Simple basic blog created while following the quick startup guide of Next.js. Should be public, and let's create a repository. You do not need to initialize it. If you need help, take a look at it. Okay, create repository. Why am I even reading this? Okay, we can do the second one. can close this actually. It's not closing. I don't know why it's not closing. I'll just cd NextJS blog and I'll just paste it. Okay, let's first commit our code. I can simply go ahead and do it by I can simply say like git add dot, then say git commit -m and say like created the basic blog. Okay, committed, and then I can simply say push u origin master, and to push, once your GitHub repository is ready, continue to the next page. Let's refresh and check if it's ready. This is a starter template from learn Next.js. Okay, I'll update the readme. Okay. The easiest way to deploy Next.js to production is to use Vercel platform developed by creators of Next.js. Vercel is an all-in-one platform for global CDN supporting caching and jam stack deployment and serverless functions. We believe Vercel is optimal place to deploy Next.js apps. You can start it for free, no credit cards required. I can sign up to create Vercel account, choose continue with GitHub and go through the sign up process. Import your Next.js blog repository, continue with GitHub, authorize Vercel, import your Next.js blog. Once you signed up, import your I can give the URL of my blog, the repository. If this is a personal GitHub account, also for GitHub, which ensures every push will deploy. You need to install Vercel for GitHub. You can give. Once you have installed, import Next.js blog. What the hell? Okay, so you can use default values for the following settings. No need to change anything. Vercel automatically detect you have a Next.js app. Choose optimal settings for you. When you deploy your Next.js app will start building, it should finish it in under a minute. Help is available. If your deployment fails, you can always get help from परमेश्वरा Congratulations, you just deployed your Next.js app to production. On the next page, we'll go in details of Vercel and the recommended workflow. Phew, that was easy. That was really easy. Vercel is made by creators of Next.js and has first-class support for Next.js. When you deploy your Next.js app to Vercel, the following happens by default. Pages that use static generation and assets, JS, CSS, images, fonts, etc. will automatically be served from the Vercel Edge network, which is blazingly fast. Pages that use static server-side rendering and API routes will automatically become isolated serverless functions. This allows pages, rendering, and API requests to scale infinitely. Vercel has many more features such as custom domains. Once deployed on Vercel, you can assign a custom domain to your Next.js app. Take a look at our documentation. Environment variables. You can also set environment variables. Take a look at our documentation. You can then use those environment variables in your Next.js app. Automatic HTTPS. It enables by default including custom domain and does not require extra configuration. We auto renew. Nice. Preview development for every push. Create a new branch on your app, make some changes, push to create new pull request. You should see a comment by Vercel bot on the pull request. Try clicking on preview URL. You should see the changes you just made. Okay. Vercel automatically creates a preview branch for that branch on preview deployment for that branch on every push. The preview URL will always point to the latest preview deployment. Okay, it's deployed. We can see. Vercel.app. Okay, when you have a pull request open, okay, we can share this preview URL with your collaborators and get immediate feedback. If your preview deployment looks good, merge it to master. When you do this, Vercel automatically creates a production deployment. Nice. This sounds really nice. Deployment, preview, and ship. We have just gone through the workflow: develop, preview, and ship. Okay, so what we do, we add something like, okay, let's create a new branch. Get checkout -b intro. Okay, we are into intro branch, and what we'll do, we'll see. You can DM me on Instagram and I'll just say href equals https instagram.com/urbancodes. That's instagram.com/urbancodes. Okay, that's fine. Okay, let's see now. We'll get commit -am and say added Instagram link. git push origin intro. Okay, new branch. We can check. Compare and pull request. We can create a pull request and we will see our cell. Okay, preview in progress. Okay, we can push. We can see there's a virtual bot and we can check DM on Instagram. Okay, so this is the preview branch and this is our actual, which does not have any Instagram link, right? So now what we'll do, we simply go here and merge pull request and confirm merge. This branch was successfully deployed. If we refresh, we have that. Guys, we have that. And this is the workflow: develop, preview, and ship. This looks good. This actually looks good. So, yeah. Other hosting options. If you have followed instructions so far, your package should have this build, start, and leave. In your own hosting provider, run build script once, which will build the production in the .next folder. After building, the start script should start a Node.js server that supports hybrid pages, serving both statically generated and server-side rendered pages and API routes. Finally, congratulations on finishing all your basic lessons. Here are some recommended steps. Share your Next.js app. We encourage you to share your build in this tutorial on Twitter. If you do, please mention our team at Vercel so that we can take a look. We'd love to get your feedback on this tutorial as well. Use TypeScript with Next.js. If you prefer TypeScript, we'll see this documentation sometime else. I didn't know it would go. It will be this long. So I'm actually tired. So yeah, we can add TypeScript. If you are a fan of TypeScript, you can see how we can add a TypeScript. We have to add a tsconfig, empty tsconfig, and we have to do some, configurations. But yeah, it's done. So that was it. I'll share the link. Okay, so I guess that was it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. I know this was a really long video, but phew, it was fun. I guess Next.js is really awesome. Like it has so many added features on React, so I'm really looking forward to making projects in it, and hopefully we'll do that on this channel as well. So if you made it till the end, if you did, I know most of you wouldn't, but if you did, then please tell me in your comments how was it. Okay, and I'll see you in the next video.